Welcome, this is Mark Tucker, and today we're going to talk about Alexa Presentation Language, or APL, and how to create a BadgeWrapper component. Now, BadgeWrapper component gets its name, as you can see some examples down here, because we're going to add badges. In this case, a red badge in the top right corner with a number, bottom left corner with a different font color and background color, and the border color on the badge being the same as the background, so it makes it look like there's a little notch being taken out of the component here. A kind of a rounded rectangle or square with a letter in it, and in this case nothing in the badge at all, but just a little dot in the top right. So those are the different types of badges that we're going to be able to create with this component. Now the idea of it being a wrapper component is that the base component that you would have in APL, like in this case an Alexa button or an Alexa icon button, or this blue frame that's been rounded with a blue background, or this vector graphic component here that we've added. So those, these two different buttons, the frame and the vector graphic, are the base components, and you could create an application with those components or other components. And the idea is that we'd be able to add this wrapper component as a parent component to these, and then just add the badge to existing components. So that's what we're going to go for. Here you can find this on APL Ninja. All you have to do is search for BadgeWrapper and you'll be able to find it. So let's start from scratch here. We're going to create a new document here in APL Ninja. Get your basic structure for a document. Lots of blanks here to fill in. And we're not going to use this data section over here. This is where you would, like on the button, whatever you wanted the text to be is something that you could configure or pass in as a separate data document. But we're not going to use that for this example. So what you want to do most of the times when you start off with a document, and this is going to be a new screen that's going to show on the whole, take up the whole space, is that you want to start off with a component. And usually that's going to be your container component. So this is where we're going to put our base component in. This is everything's JSON here, and so we're going to go ahead and add this component in. And every component has a type. So in this case, this is a container component. And if you wanted to go in here, you could, the documentation, you could find out more information about the container component, about its properties, about the children of this component. So the container component is a non-visual component. Its job is to do layout, and it uses a subset of Flexbox, if you're familiar with that in web programming. So very similar concept. So we're getting an error here saying that we have a comma here. It's very strict on its JSON formatting, so you need to use quotes and not end with commas, etc. So the first thing that you notice is this width and height is set to 100 VH and VW and 100 VH. That's short for 100% or 100 view width and 100 view height. If you wanted to have something take up half the space, it could be 100, or it could be 50 VH and 50 VW. So the idea is that this container is going to take up the whole screen, and right now there's nothing in it. And that's where we need to add an item. So just really quick, in case you don't know this, you can either have an item property, which is a single object, or you can have an items property, which is an array. And that's the way I typically do it, because you don't know what you're going to necessarily add after the fact. And to get some of this formatting, you can save your document and it will do some nice formatting. Now what we'll typically do is to get some sort of a background. Then you might want to start off with something like an Alexa background component. And you might want to set the background color to something like red, just so we know that it's there. And you can use words and stuff, but you notice that the background color isn't red. And you're like, okay, what's going on here? Let's go up here and we'll say, oh, here's the background. And it's, the component's actually named Alexa Background. They just use a shorter name. And Alexa Background requires you to import the Alexa Layouts package at version 1.4. And so you can go ahead and grab and copy this here and find our import section, and there we have our background. So that's what you can start off doing. Something else that's similar, and I just wanted to point this out so you understand what's going on behind the scenes, that Alexa Background is a component that Amazon gives you, but you can build your own background if you wanted to do some special stuff. And so in this case, we're going to use a frame control instead. Notice how we just had to specify the background color and the type here with the frame. Let's go ahead and save it. There we go. Same thing, it's a frame control with background, and we can change the color to different things that we want. But we're going to do kind of just a little bit off black. If we're going to do our own, then we need to set position to absolute, which means that it takes like inside of this container that it's in, then we're going to be able to position it, and it's going to take up, in this case we're saying we want it to take 100% of the width and height of its parent container. So we've got the kind of the basics there laid out. Now what we also want to do is we're going to have, let's go ahead and put our controls that we want to then wrap with the badge that we're going to create. So what we want to do is we're going to have 4 buttons go across, and so we're going to create another container control, and in this case we're going to specify some properties on it so that as we add some things to it, then it's going to lay out the buttons and controls for us. So here is at the same level as the frame control, but not in the absolute positioning. Then we're got another container, and we say it's going to take up the whole space as well. And the frame was first, and so now the container is second. And so if things were all relatively positioned, then that's how it would be. But because we've done the position, the absolute position, then that's taking up the whole space too. So both of those things are basically taking up the whole space. One is a background, and then this is going to be the whole screen with whatever we put into it. And we're going to say we're going to lay things out in a row, and we want things to be centered with space around whatever we're going to put in here. And the thing that we're going to put in here is going to be, once again, a list of items. And there we go. So the first item we're going to add in here is going to be our Alexa button. So there's our button, and we've given it some text. We've told it that it's outlined, and then we even have it so when you click on it, there's that it goes ahead and executes. So that's our first thing that we're going to do. The next component we're going to add is an Alexa icon button. And let's go ahead, and sometimes I do this, I shrink this down, so there's that first component, so I can do comma, add my second one here. We're going to save that, and the Alexa icon button, we can specify the size, and DP means instead of just normal pixels, it's device independent pixels. And this is something that I've learned as well. So 72 DP is the same thing as 72 as a string, which is the same thing as 72 as a number. Technically it's a dimension type, but what this DP means is that as we change the screen sizes, then things adapt to the different like hub, small, medium, large, or other devices, and it goes ahead and takes care of that for us. So let's go ahead and add. So let's add the second thing in was that button. The third thing we're going to add is a frame. So we're going to shrink this one up again and do that same trick. We're going to add the frame. So there's just the frame, which is our base component. Save that. And then the last thing we're going to do is a vector graphic. And so we're going to go ahead and grab the code for this vector graphic and add that in as well, right there. And now the vector graphic doesn't show up because we don't have the AVG, which is a subset of SVG, defined. So that's going to happen up here in our graphics section. And so here's the code that we're going to use for that. So our graphics is where we can define our different vectors. So there's the little bird app house, and so the AVG is its own format, but this will look fairly familiar too with the path and the path data. Here's the outside of the house, here's the circle in the middle. So we've got that. So the strange thing right now is this button's a little bit out of place, and we'll figure that out. But that's the basic that we're going to start off with. So in the next video, we're going to get into more detail about how we create this wrapper control and what to do with that.